So, I mean, this is it was an incredible season. Just, I guess, let's start with your just reactions to making this finals run. That can we accurately say it was an unexpected run?
Well, I think that obviously the way we started the season and what it looked like there, kind of as we went through the toughest part of the regular season schedule in December, and then where we stood mid-January, I think that certainly we didn't look like a team that would be quite in the mix. We didn't think we were as far off as maybe you know others would assume, just because we didn't feel like our shooting was even close to what it would be, after a long stretch of games. And that kind of showed itself true. But to come together and to continue to get better, to be a real team that was pulling in one direction. That we had 17 players, including our two ways, and there was not one person not totally all on board moving in one direction. It was a real enjoyable group to be around. It was really impressive how they came together. And all that said, we're obviously stung because we came up short. Because as the season went on, and you hit February and you started to see what we were capable of, and you hit March and you started to see it was coming together. There was a real belief that we could win the whole thing.
Next question is from Chris Gasper.
Hey, Brad. This question is just sort of specific to what you just mentioned in terms of the sting of the finals and not winning it. Have you guys addressed at all, sort of in game 5 and game 6, the instances of guys maybe getting too focused on the officiating and that having a detrimental effect on the team? And as a follow-up to that, how much can you guys address that organizationally, and how much is that on the players to alter that behavior?
Well, I think if throughout the course of the year, we had, just like a lot of other teams, those are things that are within your control that you have to, be able to manage and navigate appropriately, and be able to play at a high level through whatever the circumstances may be, whether you agree with a call or not. I mean, I've always thought that when I was coaching, in my most emotional moments, I would go back and watch the game afterwards, and most of the calls were usually right, and I think that wasn't always the case, but it was most of the time. And so I think the longer you go through it and the more you're in it, you've got to just control what you can control. And certainly those are conversations that you have throughout the course of the year. Those are things that, will continue to be focal points. And I thought that, certainly I thought that we had some areas where we shot ourselves in the foot. That would probably be the least of those. Chris, I think that, the turnovers in the finals, and there were a lot of contributing factors to that, in the 2-point shooting in the finals. And again, a lot of contributing factors to that, including Golden State's excellent defense. But those are the things that, as we go back and we kind of reassess where we came up short, I think it was more our offensive production than it was, anything else. But there's no question, just like anything else, like you mentioned, whether it be officials, whether it be, how you sleep, how you travel, how you eat, how you take care of your body. There's 1,000 things that go into, being prepared to being your best and controlling what you can control.
Mark Murphy.
Hey, Brad. When you taking a look at that situation late in the finals with the turnovers and with the offensive production, what do you feel you need to add to this mix right now?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's very similar to a lot of other years. I mean, you got to look at it and say, okay, big picture wise, we finished the regular season as a top 6 or 7 offense. We finished, and obviously a great defense. our defense was good enough to win throughout the entire playoffs, even though we slipped a little bit in the Golden State series. A lot of those baskets that separated being a great defense from a little bit below that were the fact that they scored in transition because of the turnovers. And so I think that, you got to take it all, into account. That said, I think to improve, obviously I thought that we struggled against their switching. We struggled against their overhelp and their great activity. Again, I don't want to take anything away from Golden State. They were terrific defensively. But there were a lot of factors that contributed to both the turnovers and to the 2-point shooting again. I mean, if you would have told me going into the Golden State series that we shoot 41% from three, I would have thought we have a heck of a chance of winning, obviously, but came up short. As far as improving, it's the same old deal. Draft, develop, and deals. You just look for things that make the most sense within your group. I think that we have a little bit of we have to walk a fine line a little bit. I think teams are fragile. I think the way that teams work together and operate together are fragile. And I think your identity as a team, when you find one that's successful, which we did this year on the defensive end of the floor, and when we were at our best sharing the ball offensively, those things are fragile. And so just to add doesn't mean that you're not taking something away from the group. And to change significant pieces in the group doesn't mean that might not totally take your identity and shift it in a direction that's not as successful. And so it's quite a fine line. If you ask me right now what we need, I'd like to have a little bit more scoring, consistent scoring off the bench. I think that we have some short-term needs there, but I believe in a couple of the guys that didn't get a chance to play as much, that they will continue to improve and be knocking on that door soon. So we have some development opportunities within our own organization, and we'll continue to scour and look at what our opportunities are with our trade exceptions in the draft and our limited resources in free agency.
Mark, you have a follow-up question?
Yeah, actually, you just sort of answered my question, but, with the limited resources you have, how important does something like that trade exception come in?
Well, I think the trade exception, there's a reason why a lot of the trade exceptions go unused, right? We have a bunch of them right now. We have one that expires, obviously the big one expires in July. We've got a couple of others that expire later. They're all reasonable amounts that you can take good players in with. And so you balance that on, okay, what's the cost that you're going to have to pay? Who's going to, again, are you going to bring somebody in that's going to add to, not necessarily take away, which, you obviously don't want to do. So it's still about being prudent on and thoughtful about what the deal is. But we're going through the whole list, and we're trying to find guys that fit what we need and will fit in to how we want to play and how Ime wants to coach, and and makes it so that this train can take off from the get-go next year. I thought one of the things that caught up with us was that we started so poorly last year, and there were obviously a variety of reasons for that. But when you start off 18-21, you've got to fight, scratch, and claw to get into the playoffs, get into the seeds, get home court. You got to do all that stuff, and there's no margin for error. And as a result, you play a lot of minutes on the way. And so we've got to start better next year. And so adding people that add to our group, is again the major focus. However, we do that.
Gary Washburn.
Hey, Brad.
Gary,
you reshaped your roster when you literally you took a week and you made your first move and you began to put it in your style. Do you need more veterans? It seemed like Golden State just had more depth, and they went to 10 guys in the series, and you guys are basically playing 7.5, and maybe fatigue was a factor. Do you think fatigue was a factor with your major stars? And secondly, do you need to add more veteran depth? Do you need to add more guys who can compete for spots for playing time and give Ime more options, especially as the season progresses?
Well, I think the answer to your question, I felt like our depth was really good through the East. And then obviously we struggled off the bench in the finals. So as you kind of go through and look at the big picture of it all, there's no question that, again, whether that comes from the guys that are within the program now, and they're able to win those minutes because of a great summer of development and they come in ready and, they increase their ability to add to winning, or that comes from outside, then, we're going to try to do both well. As far as increasing the competition and whether it's a veteran or a young guy, whatever, it's just who can add to minutes to winning. I thought that they did have, they did do a good job of that, Golden State. But I know you think about one of the most impactful guys off their bench was a guy that, has barely been in the league, and Peyton. And I thought he was terrific off the bench. I thought Poole, obviously a third-year player, was terrific off the bench. So, whether it's a veteran, whether it's a younger player, it's more about the fit with adding to our core on the court. I thought our leadership was really good on this team. Everybody does it in their own way. All of our best players added to it. I thought Jason's voice got way louder as the year went on, and I think that that's a huge, huge thing for our team. Obviously Jalen and Marcus have always been, good vocal leaders and people on the court and in the practice, and in the locker room. And then Al's voice is as good as it gets. Like, as far as, when you start talking about, leadership from a veteran presence who also is like about every right thing, and is so comfortable in who he is as a person and a player. I don't think it gets much better than that.
A couple more questions. First from Jay King.
You guys have a number of tools this summer, including the big trade exception. Do you expect ownership to give you the okay to use those? And how much do you expect them to be willing to spend this summer to help the team?
Yeah, we've got the okay to do whatever we need to do.
Adam Himmelsbach.
Brad, you mentioned Jayson. He was obviously everyone was down after the loss, but he seemed particularly down, and it was a tough finals for him. Ime even talked about it a little bit. What kind of conversations have you had with him? What do you make of just his entire season? Obviously had a lot of high points as well, and then a tough ending. And what kind of things do you say to him kind of moving forward?
I just told him go on vacation. Like, go get some rest. I mean, this guy gave us everything he had. I mean, when you look at the minutes, when you look at the games played, I've said this many times, he's a superstar that doesn't want to sit. Like, he wants to play. He wants to play all the time. I thought that in the finals, obviously I think he would be the first to say that he would like to have some of those moments back. But hey, I thought there were other contributing factors to how not only, he played, but we had several guys that really struggled in the finals. And, I thought their defense again was excellent. I thought our O got stagnant. And I thought that, the challenge of the long year adds up, but that's part of the learning experience about, getting to the point where, you have a great idea about what it takes to get all the way through. But again, like, where you look at, and the way that I try to look at it is obviously, we're all subjective in every moment and, can react emotionally. But when you start looking at it objectively and more so historically, what Jayson and Jalen have done in the playoffs historically at their ages is, rarefied air. And so I think we're very cognizant of the fact that, even though Jayson would admittedly not have played his best series, there's no chance we're there without him, and without all of his great play all the way through. I think back all the time to, Game 6 in Milwaukee was one of the best games I've seen an individual play in my time, certainly in person, certainly with the Celtics. And, without that performance, we would have had this discussion, a month and a half ago.
From Associated Press, Brad, Kyle Hightower.
Hey, Brad. One of your first big moves, obviously, or your first big move was hiring Ime. I'm just curious about what your quick evaluation of his first year was on the job. And for you, I wonder just what your perspective was like after the first year in your new chair, and what's your biggest takeaway, biggest lesson, maybe one thing you could boil down that you learned from your new role.
Yeah, I mean, I think to keep the focus on Ime, I thought Ime did a great job. And, as I said, in the first 40 games or so, he went through pretty much everything you can go through as a coach in Boston. And I think that's, a testament to the way that he stayed even keel. I thought that he found a rhythm in coaching this group that obviously, was really good. As we went through the regular season and into the playoffs, and did a good job of maintaining his competitiveness, but also his perspective and evenness throughout the playoffs. I've told people I'm close to all along, I think his ability to bounce back after the tough losses in the playoffs was really special. And his ability to always stay, humble and hungry throughout it all was really special. As for me, I just continue to keep learning. I still feel like I've got a long way to go in this role. I've got great people that I lean on every day around me, and I'm thankful for that. Our front office does an amazing job, and without all their help, it would be a lot more difficult. That's for sure.
Jared Weiss.
Brad, looking back at the stagnation questions about the finals, do you feel like those issues are only going to be resolved by the players, like your main players, continuing to develop, or do you feel like adding more playmaking off the bench and making other tweaks is what you need to augment?
What was the word you used?
I can't even remember at this point, honestly.
It was I didn't know what it meant. So I was trying to figure out what you were asking as you were going through it. Jared, I think we need a little bit more playmaking. Yeah, I think that's real. I think we need more playmaking, but I don't think we can expect to be stagnant, right? So we have to make sure that we continue to play with pace. When we're at our best, we play with pace, and when we create one advantage, the ball whips around the court. And I just thought that we played pretty slow in that last series, and again, credit them, they impacted us for sure. But and all that said, we had a chance to go up 3-1 in game 4 with about 5 minutes to go, and maybe we feel a little bit different. But there's no question that in this league, the more guys that can make a play offensively, the better. And I think that the challenge again is making sure that whatever you do around the margins of our roster, we have a unique identity, and we have uniqueness in our size and our ability to be versatile, all across the board. And so we have to take all of that into account when we're adding to our team. But if we can maintain that and add some playmaking, yeah, without a doubt, you want to do that.
Bobby Manning.
Hey, Brad, kind of to that point, when you're looking at this roster internally, I think one of the messages Ime had for them was come back better. What does that mean to you? What do you want to see this roster, some individuals do on this roster to come back better, come back improved? Anything specifically come to mind?
Well, each guy what we do is we break it up into 3 groups of players. Our more veteran, high minute guys are the next kind of tier of the younger development but played some minute guys, and then the guys that are going to play summer league, or the guys that are haven't played as much. And each of them has a different program that they're on, obviously voluntarily wherever they are, or they know how to do. And so, the key is that each person takes the appropriate amount of time to rest. Each person gets back in the gym hungry, gets back in the weight room hungry to improve, understands what it takes to get through a long season, and, brings something to the table that, adds to winning. I think that, I thought, a good example of that was, Grant, Grant came back and decided that he was going to be a guy that, was a versatile defender and a shot maker. And it doesn't need to get much more complicated than that for some guys. Not everybody's going to be Jayson Tatum. Not everybody's going to be Jaylen Brown. And I think a lot of times in this world, we try to be great at 1,000 different things, when in essence, all we need to play a role is to be great at a couple of things. And so once you figure out kind of what that can be for you individually through the, assistance and help of the coaching staff and others, then the game slows down, the game becomes easy, and, your opportunities increase. And so, I think with our group in particular, it's not as much about, blindly acquiring talent as it is about fitting a team together. I think that we've got some very, very talented guys, and they're young. And then it's about how do we all fit together and bring our strengths to the table to accentuate each other. Did a pretty good job of that this year, and I thought we really made headway in that. And I think we have an ability to take off running here in the next season, because I do think we have a foundation of, understanding who we are and how we add value to the team.
Mark D'Amico.
Hey, Brad, you mentioned the fragility of a team and specifically with the identity and this group pulling together. I'm just curious from your perspective. I know you talk all the time about every year is its own entity. You could bring back the exact same team and it might not perform the same way. How do you replicate those things in terms of identity and the whole group pulling together as you head into next season?
Well, I think it takes a selflessness. I think it takes a self-awareness. Anytime you have a good team, it takes people giving a little, and then it takes, the hunger that you derive from what we just went through, right? I mean, there should be a bitter taste after a great season, which isn't all bad, because then it, can propel you into, being ready when it all starts next year. And so again, I think that starting better is important. I think that will be an emphasis. I don't think that, anybody is satisfied with where they are, but, as we all go out, as Bobby asked, as we all go out to improve individually, when we come back, we've got to take those individual improvements and our own strengths and add them to the team. And, and I think that that's the challenge with a lot of teams when you start at the start of a new season, is everybody wants to show what they got good at. And so we got to get good at some things, but we've got to be able to do it within the context of winning basketball as a team.
We won't be able to get to all the questions. And Brad, thank you for your time. We'll take the final two questions, please. First from Mark Murphy.
Hey, Brad, from, with Rob, you've got a knee issue. With Marcus, you've got injury issues. With Jayson, you've got the shoulder. Moving forward, are there any surgeries coming out of this or anything you anticipate?
Nothing that I anticipate. Those guys would just need some rest and they should be good to go. And obviously they played anyways. I mean, they played, Rob's knee as he went through the, whole course of the playoffs, especially when we were playing every other day in the second round and in the third round. It was very much just how he reacted day to day within that 48-hour window. But he felt much better in the finals. And obviously I thought, played pretty well in the finals, but he needs to take some time. And, both our doctors and, others that we have consulted with have all said the same thing. Like there's certainly no risk in being out there, but when it's over, you need to take a few weeks for it to completely settle down and for the, so that you're not, just putting as much load on it as we do as you go through the playoffs.
Final question is from John Corrales, Brad.
Brad, did Ime give you any sort of?
Can't hear you, John. So go start over again. Sorry.
Is that better?
There you go.
All right. Sorry about that.
Got your mic on.
Yeah. It's very early for me. Did Ime give you any sort of indication of a preferred style of offense or a preferred style of play after this season that would kind of guide you in the type of decisions that you're making and who to acquire and who to pursue?
No, I think we both, generally everybody wants to be able to score in three ways, right? They got to be able to score. You got to be able to break your guy down if the shot clock runs down, but you got to be able to score in pick and roll against every single coverage, right? And then you've got to be able to score in movement. And I thought I think that we would both really prefer to play with, a little bit more movement. And so ideally that would be the case. But those are conversations that we'll have down the road. I mean, I think Ime did a really good job of, fitting the pieces together and, again, creating an identity of when we were at our best, certainly defending and sharing the ball. And I think that hopefully we can build off of that. Like I said, with whoever we bring in, we haven't met after the season per se, John, because the season just ended and it's not, I'll give him a chance to take a deep breath, and we'll talk during the draft stuff this week and as we go through some of the names. But I think at the end of the day, we both have a pretty good idea of what we need and what we want to do that doesn't take away from the group. But I think it's important as we consider all of this to remember that Ime is only in year one with his staff, with this group. So there's still a lot of continuity that can be built and gained from being together.